getting ready to do a quick interview here with a person who's running for U.S. Senate. And I think most of you know, I've been working a lot in Washington, D.C., trying to raise awareness of the need for changes to help all of us. Well, what we need is people in Congress, in the House and the Senate, who understand our issue and how important it is. And most of you know I've been here at the Family Research Council, just got doing a great interview with the Epic Times that's going to be coming out sometime next week. But I had a great chance to meet Daniel here and talk to him about shared parenting. So I wanted you guys to get a chance to hear a little bit. And if you want to go ahead and talk about your background, highly intrigued of your background with the military and teaching at West Point.
So I think probably everybody's seen the movie Forrest Gump, and I've kind of lived this crazy Forrest Gump life, where I enlisted in the Army when I was 17 and went off to basic training and everything. And then the next year I went off to West Point and graduated from West Point in 1997 and spent 20 years on active duty in the Army, retired from the Army in 2017. And during my service I had the privilege of serving in combat, of leading soldiers in combat, was wounded in action by the enemy twice, and the second time caused the amputation of my right leg at the hip. And that's not by itself a qualification for high office or anything, but it is an interesting thing because I learned something really cool, and I'll tell you this story briefly. When I was wounded as an Army officer, I was transported by Marine Corps helicopter to a Navy surgical facility. And when I got there, my blood pressure was 60/0, which means I'd bled out, basically. And they gave me every drop of A positive blood they had on hand, and it wasn't enough. And I was still dying. And so they went to the mess hall where it was dinner time, and they said, okay, anybody with A positive blood, we need to have you come, if you want to, come donate blood. And 25, get this, 25 sailors and Marines. So shout out to my sailors and Marines friends. They donated blood, and it kept me alive. And what's cool about that story is that not one person said, well, is he a Democrat? He's not, gay, is he? He's not a Mexican, is he? Like, nobody does that, right? Because when Americans need Americans, Americans are there. And I think that's where our political culture needs to move to. And so I'm running to solve hard problems, like those people helped solve my hard problem back then. I'm running to solve hard problems. And our political leadership right now is a disaster, and I'm saying to people, like, look, if you like what you see in Washington, if you like what you see in Washington, send politicians back there. And if you don't like what you see in Washington, send servants. And I intend to be a servant in the United States Senate representing the people of the Commonwealth of Virginia.
What's impressive too is after your injury, you went back again and still served.
Right, yeah, so I spent a year in the hospital, and then I went and got a master's degree, and then I worked in the Bush administration doing domestic policy for a year, and then I went back and got a PhD, and then I came to West Point and taught at West Point for 6.5 years, and that's just a wonderful place. It's a great testament to our country that we continue to produce leaders like those young men and women at West Point. It's a fantastic place, and I was honored to be there.
Oh, excellent. Well, thanks so much for your service.
Yeah, of course, you're welcome.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, you're welcome.
But I also was just intrigued getting a chance to talk to you about shared parenting and why the importance of a child having both parents and how important that is for our entire country.
Yeah, so I always say, as we look at our government, some people think the smallest unit of government is like the county or the city or something. That's not true. The smallest unit of government in our Western tradition is the family, right? And each family unit is a building block upon which the rest of the society leans. And so when children are not raised by both parents, and obviously, of course, there are situations where that's not at all possible, where one is deceased or where the child is, where there's some kind of tragic situation where it's not at all possible. But where it's possible, children should be raised by both parents. And I think that's true even if both parents are no longer married. Now, of course, we should have policies that promote marriage and promote the traditional family and all of that. But clearly, when possible, shared parenting really does matter. I'll tell you a story that my brother a few years ago, a while now, went through a divorce, and he no longer sees his two children because they went with their mother to a different state, and she's remarried, and they're estranged, and he never gets to see them, even though he loves them dearly. And I have to believe, I know this from research, that those children will be worse off because of not having their no kidding dad in their lives. And where there's policies that promote one parent or the other having, by default, the most rights, that strikes me as deeply unjust, and we can fix it.
Yeah, it's a shame because the system creates a winner-take-all adversarial relationship.
That's right.
That parents know when they go into a courtroom, one of you is going to win and one's going to lose.
Yeah, and then from a policy point of view, one parent or the other, typically the man, but sometimes the woman, ends up stuck paying all the child support, and we waste all this government resources chasing after the other parent for child support, or chasing after the parent who owes child support. If they're delinquent or if they're slow, we chase after those people. And instead, if we had more of a shared parenting type situation, then there's no need or less need for that child support money to change hands. The families will tend to be more stable. The children will have a predictable life instead of this weird thing where, if you're parenting a child for 2 days a month, it's almost like you can't get ever past the sort of like cotton candy level relationship into the meat and potatoes.
Yeah, we call it a
relationship.
Disneyland dad.
Yeah, Disney dad is a great way to put it, and it's destructive to children. And, we have the nice thing about America, and I'm saying that with tongue-in-cheek, some sarcasm. The nice thing about America is we have a home for children with only one parent. It's called prison. Right, that's where our kids go if they don't have both parents, and they're at greater risk of suicide. They're at greater risk of alcohol and drug abuse. They're at greater risk of depression. Of course, they're at greater risk of committing crimes and falling into negative things. And so, that's just an example. It's just one of many examples of ways when the family breaks down, we need to do the best we can to salvage the pieces. And shared parenting is a huge way to salvage the pieces of some families that have not succeeded.
Yeah, well, it's so refreshing to talk to somebody who gets it, and so everybody knows this wasn't coached at all in any way. I mean, but I speak with legislators and candidates all across the country on a regular basis, and most people, not that they're against it, they're just unaware.
Right.
So it's just refreshing to talk to somebody who understands what's really going on and why we need changes at both the federal level with the incentive mechanism, and then at the state level with shared parenting. So normally, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, like, a personal example of that is, if you have, the ideal form of a human body is, 2 arms, 2 legs, right? And sometimes something happens where you lose a leg, like I did, right? I lost a leg in combat. So then what do you do with that? You have to have ways to try to replicate that. And so we use prosthetics, and, I use crutches because reasons. But so to me, the shared parenting ideal is a way to using policy to help recreate or salvage the good pieces of the ideal form, which is a husband and wife married to each other, loving each other, and loving their children. Yeah. And critically important.
Yeah, well, I'm really grateful for a chance to get to know you this weekend.
Yeah.
Normally with our organization, we try to keep away from officially endorsing a candidate, but I think from an informational standpoint, it helps for people to know who are the candidates who understand our issue and relate to them. And you're from the state of Virginia. You're running for U.S.
I'm running for U.S. Senate from Virginia. The website is gadeforvirginia.com, GADEFOR, and then the word Virginia.com. And you can see parts of my story on there. You can see some biographical stuff. You can see my family on there. And later we'll have policy positions on there. But I'm deeply, deeply pro-family, pro-faith, pro-traditional marriage, pro-small government, so that the government is getting out of our lives so that we can make liberty-inducing decisions on our own. So we can pursue liberty and pursue happiness the way the founders intended. That's really my goal.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much. I'm sure glad I got a chance to meet you, and,
awesome.
and look forward to be keeping in contact with you on a regular basis.
Great.
And like I said,
let's do this again anytime. Gadeforvirginia.com, gadeforvirginia.com.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Daniel. I sure appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Bye, everybody.